At Manhattan University, a graduate degree is not out of reach. You'll gain real-world skills, credentials employers value, and connections to New York City's top companies. Choose from their new Master of Science degrees in Healthcare Informatics, Digital Marketing and Analytics, Business Analytics, or Financial Analytics, all built around hands-on learning and industry partnerships. Graduate ready to lead, not just work. Take the next step at manhattan.edu/graduate. Manhattan University. Lead the future.
The Other Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
All righty, Lionel with the hour number 2 of this thing of ours, On the Other Side of Midnight, where we look at, well, the arcane, the recondite, the spooky, dare I say, the aleatory, the random, the kind of the confused and intermittent aspects of what we call life. Our number is 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. I want to provide something which, in addition to this crime, true crime, a little bit of historical reference, a little bit, kind of a little tutorial, something to teach you regarding our beloved Constitution, which, believe me, you will be the hit of. I promise you, if you listen every time, every day, I will give you at least 5 to 10 stories or facts. You'll be able to say, hey, did you know that the hyoid bone is not connected to anything? By the way, did you individuals look up the picture of Albert Fish? Did you see that? Does Mr. Fish look like, is he the last person you would ever, what would you describe him as?
He looks, well, he's got the derby.
Yeah.
I keep seeing that picture. And then I see, is that him as an older man?
That's him. That was him at the height of his career.
In the derby?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
there's the younger picture, but then later on he was. See, the reason why is when there was a book I read called Blood Letters and Bad Men. That's what kind of took me off. I loved it. I don't know where my copy is. Hollywood Babylon. Oh, I love this story. Also, there's a wonderful world which very few people know about. It's called The Blinds, or The Blind Gossip. It's almost like the dark web of news and stories about people in Hollywood in particular. Really demented. Oh, I've heard stuff I can't tell you. Put it this way, I can't even tell you if I left the name out. I can't even tell you I have limitations. I do my best. Even if we're overnight, it doesn't really matter. There are some stories you won't believe it because Hollywood is the perfect, like the grease trap of humanity. It's the worst. These people are depraved, and they always claim it was their talent that made them this way. The reason why they're like this is because in order to be talented as an actor, you must necessarily share and it's nonsense. Absolute nonsense. But I want to tell you, there's a fellow by the name of Albert Fish. He was an American serial killer in the 20s and 30s. He was also called the Werewolf of Brooklyn. I don't know. Also, the Gray Man and the Boogeyman. Interesting. This is before that name became as known as it is now. He was arrested in 1934 for the 1928 kidnapping and murder of 10-year-old Grace Budd. But I remember when I was younger, I read this and I was fascinated because we always think that today's murderers and today's, by virtue of, TV or the internet, that they're worse. Well, Albert Fish looked like somebody's grandfather. He had thin gray hair, soft-spoken. In the 20s and 30s, he drifted through New York boarding houses. He took odd jobs and he blended in. And that ordinary appearance is part of what allowed him to approach families without raising alarm. Because you see, one of the most important aspects of predation is camouflage. You can't, how do I say this? Even if you're the fastest and the strongest, you have to somehow hide your lethality from people. or else they're going to see you and just run, as opposed to seeing you when you're crouched. More about this. In 1928, Mr. Fish abducted 10-year-old Grace Budd in Manhattan after posing as a farmer looking to hire her brother. She was never seen alive again. And years later, in 1934, her parents received, this is the part that killed me, in matter of speaking, a long handwritten letter. It described in chilling, methodical detail how he killed her and claimed to have cooked and eaten parts of her body. This is in 1928. The letter was grotesquely calm in tone, almost domestic. And it was that letter, by the way, traced through stationery and handwriting that finally led police to him. In 1934, they did this. So he had been arrested before on lesser offenses and committed to psychiatric facilities, but he was repeatedly released. And one of the reasons why, he just looked like nobody special. His neighbors described him as polite, harmless, but behind that facade, he harbored just extreme compulsions and violent fantasies that psychiatrists later called among the most severe they had ever seen. So in 1936, he was executed in the electric chair at Sing Sing. You want to know what happened? This is what you've got to know. There are accounts that during the execution, the first jolt malfunctioned. Something was wrong. It shorted out. Why? Because they found later on metal objects, pins, needles in particular, that he had inserted in the inguinal and, well, the nether regions of him. Needles. They found, I don't know how many they found exactly, 29 needles embedded in, as you can imagine, where. And it shorted out. They did x-rays. I remember seeing the x-ray of the needles, and he did this over years to torture himself. And his final words, this is the best part. When you're going to go, they said, gave the most vile, it was never transcribed, but the most vile and disgusting last words. You know how today you'd say, any last words? No, I'm going to. Do you have any last words? No, I'm going to. Sorry, or I didn't do it, or no, nothing. Not him. Oh, I got a few words. He said he didn't even know why he was there. I don't know what he says. He called it the supreme thrill of his life. And they called it the banality of calm. That such depravity could still hang. When you talk about the banality, it reminds me of Eichmann, the banality of evil. He looked nothing like you would think. That's what I find fascinating. But he took the moment, he said, oh, I'm going out with a bang. And to write letters to the... Now, you might ask yourself, what is the purpose of this? Well, one thing is I find the idea as follows. Do you think mankind is good? Are we good? Are we benevolent, beneficent? Are we philanthropic? Are we charitable? Are we good? Is mankind good? A lot of us are. A lot of us are very good. But I mean in general, I respectfully submit that we are neither. Most of us are just not bad. I mean, some of us will go out of our way to do different things for various reasons, and sometimes people will do philanthropic things in order to feel good themselves. I don't know if that disqualifies you. But I find the notion of how bad things go and how bad humans can be. And if he can do it, it's happened before. And what is it? What is it that makes people turn? I would love one day to talk to caseworkers, psychiatrists, people who saw somebody at an early age. There's a YouTube video of a very dangerous young lady when she was a kid who was, remember, not all psychopaths are dangerous. They just don't feel any kind of compunction or what have you. But what's interesting about it is that there are people, teachers should be paying attention, great attention, to maybe somebody who is the next killer or what have you. And I would suggest to every parent listening, the thing that you should be most upset about and most careful never to allow to happen is, simply put, your child to be a bully. When your child is a bully at a young age, and your child is basically showing a predilection for sadism, the joy they feel in making other people suffer, the joy they feel in exerting their own behavior or their own dominance and watching people cry, watching people succumb, watching people cower, that is the precept, or the precursor, I should say, of later on some deeper psychopathology or some sadistic behavior. What do you think? That's my favorite line. What do you think? 800-848-9222. Have you ever, as a teacher, seen somebody that you knew, this kid is not, something's wrong? And yet, this is the part where I would ask, where only God or nature can figure out, the people. I saw a documentary one time of a kid who was an assassin. I think it was in the Congo. A young kid who was an assassin. A paid, hired assassin. AK-47, he killed more people than you could ever imagine as part of the war or whatever. At 10, 11, 12 years old. When the wars were settled, when matters became calm, he was put up for adoption. And they had to explain to people, is there anything about this young man that we should know? And they said, well, yes, in full disclosure, he was an assassin. He's got about 80 scalps, technically. And later on, they said, okay, we'll take him. He was this one particular boy I remember seeing. My wife and I saw this documentary. He looked like cherubic, like the sweetest kid. Never had a problem ever. And they say one of the reasons might have been because he was so young, he didn't understand what he was doing. And because what he was doing was not at his own behest, but at the insistence or the orders of others. Think about that. He didn't know what he was doing. If a child is ordered to do something horrible, that's different than them wanting to do something horrible. I'd love to. I don't know who's up at this time. Teachers, nurses, psychiatrists, priests, social workers, people who saw somebody who was just guaranteed to end up being a problem. Now, in a completely, we'll always open this subject up. Now, in a completely unrelated story, which is something that you must know to be a good and a valued citizen. As you know, people talk about the Constitution constantly. And one of the things we talk about is what it stands for. Because we always say, that's not American, that's not constitutional. What I'm going to do is give you a little brief overview of what the Constitution doesn't cover, and you will wonder, you will never be the same. You'll think, what exactly does it cover? And of the ideas that you think are protected, they're not even protected in the least with that. So remember, the goal is simply to have you say, oh, I didn't know that. And also make you think, make you imagine, make you wonder. And we have so many, oh my God, so many topics, so many things tonight to discuss that I have been wanting to, that I find fascinating. And I think you will as well. Our number is 800-844-9222. 800-844-9222. That's the right number. Yeah, right. Sometimes I'll say the same number and I'll think, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. Do you ever look at it, something like, say, is that right? Is that the number? I one time used the wrong name for like a year and nobody told me. And it was my own. 800-844-9222. This is Lionel with you on the other side of midnight.
The Other Side of Midnight with Lionel on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Lionel.
800-848-9222. 848-9222. You know, when you first heard, be honest, when you first heard Talking Heads, didn't you think, this is stupid? First I said, this is stupid. What? It's like B-52 rock lobsters? What is this crap? And then later on he said, that's not. And also, you notice how David Byrne now is smiling? Before he was like, really, I don't want to say Asperger, but no, nothing. I don't know if that was an act. Now he's happy. Just like John Fetterman. When John Fetterman first came on, remember him in the Senate? He was like, he couldn't say anything. Now he's glib. He's Gielgud. Somebody asked him, what happened? How did you go from that to this? He still wears the hoodies, but nobody's asked him the $1 million question. Why can you now speak? When you talk about debauchery, when you talk about the depravity, when you talk about the underbelly of society, when you talk about the flotsam and jetsam of humanity, neither the Scylla nor the Charybdis, you think of one man and one man only. His name is John from Hell's Kitchen. You're on the other side of midnight with Lionel.
Good morning, Lionel.
Good day, sir.
That's quite an introduction. I don't know what to make of it. I don't know whether to say yay
I had to
or
cut
nay.
I had to cut myself short. I had so much more to say.
You could have went on and on.
Indeed, sir.
You were talking about we had a conversation last week about good and evil.
Yes.
And I got to tell you something, man. There is we're from the same vintage, the same era. When we were younger, there was always wackos, there was always bullies, there was always psychos. But there is something now that I was sitting on 10th Avenue today doing my laundry at 46th and 10th at the clothespin. Mm-hmm. And outside there's a little bench, and I was just sitting there in the sun enjoying the day, and these school kids came by. And I was like, wow, this is interesting. And they verbally assaulted me. I can't even tell you what they said.
Why? You were just sitting, just unprovoked?
Lionel, I was just sitting there. I had an angle where I could see my clothes spinning.
Right.
I was in a Zen mode, man.
Right. In a spin mode and a Zen mode, yes.
Right. I was watching the dirt spin away, and I was looking forward to the dryer. And all of a sudden, they came by, and they just unloaded on me. And, I know you're a guy. I'm a Luddite. Mm-hmm. We can get into this. I'm a Luddite. I know you're a guy that loves to go to this and go to that and chat GPT and boop-a-da-bop-a-da-bing. If there's something I want to know, I go and I find out about it. You have your way of doing it, and you're a fact checker because you've done it on the air, and I respect you for that. I would get in too much trouble with that stuff, to be quite honest with you. So I just like to stay out there in the world and view the human condition.
Well, tell me about these hooligans, these miscreants, and don't quote them, but just give me the subject matter. They saw you and started yelling at you and said what? Was it racial?
There. Excuse me?
Was it racial? Was it?
Yes, it was completely racial. I was sitting there just minding my business. Just waiting for my turn to go in and unload this.
I take it they are black kids or non-white kids?
There were a couple of black kids and a couple of Latin girls.
Okay.
The girls, which was interesting,
or worse,
when the black kids started laying into me, the girls grabbed them and said, "What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?" So because I got up and I said, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?" I said, "Do you have a mother? Do you have a father? Do you have a grandparent? What are you talking about?" And it was totally racial. And here's the thing that makes me sad. We grew up during a time and we grew up when we probably can both agree that we probably thought we'd seen it all.
Right.
Now it's to another level. Like, this could have turned into something. I wanted to take this one. I remember Morgan Freeman in Shawshank Redemption when they asked him, what would he say to that kid? And I got to tell you something. When I was a kid, I was rough and tumble, but I was never disrespectful. I would never do that. I would never get racial with someone. I would never get. I mean, I'm 70 years old, and I'm sitting there going, okay, if I don't manage this and maneuver this correctly, this could turn into like blood right here.
But not only that, may I just say something? You, by virtue of your chiseled countenance. And you look absolutely exquisite, but you also, maybe by virtue of the fact that you're an actor, you also can come across like a psycho killer. Speaking of talking heads, you have that look as well. One never knows. You could be anything.
I do. I'm aware of that.
But they take their life in their hands. How do they know you're not going to just open up on them because you have? You're having a bad day. That's what I wonder.
Well, I got to tell you something. I've always tried to, in my life, have a discipline in that area, because I remember being a kid, and I remember being hungry, angry, lonely, tired, confused, bemused.
It sounds like an Emma Lazarus. Give me, you're tired, you're lonely, you're confused.
Yeah, exactly.
You're foolish.
I remember being an angry young man. I remember that. But I never, and I had a few friends that were just completely wackadoo. Like, they would just like throw people through windows.
Yeah.
That wasn't me.
No, but what I'm saying is, my question is, how do they know that you're not like that?
They don't.
So there's a sense of impunity, and that's why every now and then I think people should be sometimes taught a lesson either by you directly or by. And by the way, this is 30 past the hour. I thought I'd let you know.
Yes.
So how did it end up? Did you just walk away? Did you?
I stood up and I said to the kid, there was one kid. He had to be 17.
Oh.
And he wanted to get into it. And I said to him, listen, man, you don't know me, I don't know you, and you don't know what is in or not what's in my pocket. Yeah, right. And there's nothing in my pocket.
Right.
It was a gum, right?
Some Mentos and a ticket from the track.
And a little ball of lint.
Right. A lint-covered sour ball.
Exactly. Right. And a lifesaver from 1978. So I said to him, I'm 70 years old. How old are you? I'm 17. I said, you're never going to make 70.
Right.
Why don't you just relax? And the girls were like restraining him. He wanted to go, like he wanted to go, Willie Pep and Sandy Sadler.
Right.
And I said to him, look, this isn't going any further. But I'm telling you right now, you don't walk up on people like this.
But John, this young man will not come to a good end. My friend, I thank you. I wish you nothing but the best, good and kind sir. Benny in Bayside, you're on the other side of midnight with Lionel.
Good evening, buddy. I worked in a job on high school for 12 years. I made it to handyman, and I became, friendly with some teachers. Some teachers, I didn't know their names. But on 3 different occasions, an AP of this department or whatever goes, Brian, go get your teacher's license. And I go, why would I do that? Get a pay cut? I don't need a pay cut to get my teacher's license. Anyways, long story short.
Wait a minute, a pay cut from handyman?
Oh, yeah. I was part of the custodial staff.
Oh, but I'm saying the custodial staff made more than teachers?
Me as a handyman made more than a teacher with their master's. Yes.
Wow. Is it a union? Is it a union position or?
It was union, but today take that union and.
Well, good for you.
My bathroom is worth more.
I would have never guessed it. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir. Proceed.
But anyways, these teachers, these APs, these are the head of the science department, the head of the math department. Please go get your teacher's license because you know how to teach, Brian. Like after talking to you. Anyways, they said, please go get your teacher's license. I go, what do? You go to Queensboro, you sign up, you attend the first class, and never show up again, and get a D- and get your certificate. I go, why would I ever do that? You know, and again, looking back.
Well, did you do it?
Today,
did you do it?
Oh God, no. These kids today, I'd be in jail. I mean, not that I'd be in jail, but I would not be able to handle it with the kids today.
Now, by virtue of the copious, thorough, and exceedingly excessive introduction to you, as drafted by our own Yuri, he writes, wants to comment teachers that make an impact versus those that don't. Are we heading towards that direction?
No, but I know how to convey to people. I teach air conditioning and heating.
That's a start. That's a start. When you're talking a kid down off the ledge, you say, Freon, there's an analogy here. I'm sorry.
Anyways, I'm saying, like, I know how to break things down to that person.
But, you should have done that, Benny. Benny, I wish you the best, and too bad you didn't do that. See, I have no tolerance. Well, maybe I do. I don't know. I don't even know. I just, sometimes when my level hits, I'm thinking, that's it. I'm done. That's all I want. Mike in the Bronx. Mike, you're on the other side of midnight with Lionel.
Yeah, I can't give you a lot of information. Just to say that the last guy who was shot by Son of Sam, mm-hmm. I bunked with in a way school.
Really?
And he had a piece of his head blown off.
Oh my God!
But he survived, and he had a number of nominal jobs, and they blamed it on that. I called another classmate, and I said, do you think, listening to him on TV, do you think he's any different than when we knew him in high school? Mm-hmm. And he said, no. So he had a piece of it, the head blown off.
Did he ever discuss either the case or... No.
No, but I knew the girl. It was their first date. And I knew the girl, and by coincidence, her father, Detective Keenan, mm-hmm. Wound up jumping on the case to catch him. He was so distraught that his daughter was in the car.
Right.
And, so this guy who was shot, he did have, longish hair, and it was black.
Okay.
And, so that's probably why. And that's about it. I'm another 70-year-old from Hell's Kitchen.
Well, bless your heart, Mike. I'm telling you, we should have a club. Thank you, my friend. Thank you, my friend. I mean that sincerely. See, that's there's also something that I heard. One of the things which people had suggested in a long time. Who was it? I think Maury Terry might have said this. That one of the beliefs at the time was that what they wanted, or what whoever these people wanted, was, believe it or not, this thing called a snuff film, an actual recording of an act of a murder. Because at that time, 36, at that time, there really was a market, in essence, for that. Here's one for you. One time I was very good friends with a guy from ATF. And he was fascinating. He says, was there ever, I said, have you ever heard, because we always heard about these things called snuff films. Have you ever heard of actually one existing? And he told me, he said, he never did it by virtue of the jurisdiction of what he did. But he said he was very familiar with people who had worked for the postal department, postal inspectors and the like. And what they would do, the way they would smuggle this out was in the back of art, actual art. And there was some prominent people whose names I don't want to mention, but supposedly they were the pictures or the tapes or whatever were put in the back of paintings that would go overseas. And that's now another thing too. I said, this fascinates me. I said, What about others? He said, believe it or not, most of the times they are not authentic, which is good. That some people had figured, I'm going to put out a fake snuff film that shows the depiction of somebody being killed, when in fact they weren't. Now, here's this thing which is interesting. If I were to sell you a snuff film and I were to claim that it was authentic and it wasn't, am I still charged with selling you a snuff film? Number one. Number two, let's say I really did sell one, and then when caught, I said, it's not real. How would you tell the difference, aside from some type of forensic analysis? Believe it or not, most of the time, the reason why the business was, if you will, not exactly what it's made out to be, is the fact that people sold so many fake ones. Now, listen to this one. You might say, well, why would a fake, anything, be the same as a real one? When I was a prosecutor, what enraged me, first of all, I thought drug prosecutions were just kind of stupid because they're so minuscule, anyway. But it wasn't my job. That's what the legislature said, and that's the way it goes. But if you had, this is in Florida, if you sold oregano as marijuana, it's called sale of a counterfeit controlled substance. It's a felony. It's not real. If I sold real marijuana at that weight, it would be a misdemeanor. If I sell oregano at that weight, I think under 20 grams, it's a misdemeanor. Under 20 grams, if it's oregano, it's a felony. Because you thought, I never understood that one. Never. Now, speaking of the law, you, as you know, are charged with knowing everything in the law, every aspect of the Constitution. And I'm telling you, if we could have a class, I told you I have this fantasy about having classes during the summertime where parents come and we start off, it's almost like bringing back civics the way it used to be taught. And one of the things we talk about is that what every citizen should know about the Constitution, which is critical because we use it all the time. We refer to it all the time. Have you heard, one of my favorites is that those individuals who happen to argue against the president's military action in Iran are saying this is violative of the Constitution because it was not because the Congress did not declare war. That is so old, I'm sorry to say. Not only that, you're never going to see a declaration of war ever again because it's not a war. And they talk about the Constitution. How many times have you said, hey, freedom of speech? That's the Constitution. There's nothing about that of a freedom of speech. You're not guaranteed freedom of speech, believe me. It was just never discussed. But what is not in the Constitution, I think, says volumes. It is one of the most imperfect documents, which we are most proud of, but it is the worst. It's like it was written by committee. It's like one section, for example, the president has to be a natural-born citizen, but not a congressman. I don't understand why you did. Did they not think it mattered? And at the time of the beginning, at the time of the creation of the country, what is a natural-born citizen? What does that mean? Nobody's an American yet. But let me tell you what's not in the Constitution, and I've always wanted to share this with you. There's no mention of this. Number one, political parties. No mention. Never mentions Democrats, Republicans, Whigs, Tories, parties. The founders were very wary of factions. They didn't like that. They didn't care. They would prefer that we did not have them. It was, in some respects, anathema to them. What do you mean there's a party? What does that even mean? The right to privacy, not explicitly stated. Courts, of course, inferred it from the various amendments and through the case Griswold. But there's no mention of privacy. Executive orders. Presidents use them all the time. But the term doesn't even appear. Where did they come from? Remember, they said if it's not in the Constitution, forget it. How about judicial review? The power of the courts to strike down laws is not even written in the Constitution. It wasn't until 1803. And the very first case you learn in any kind of common law setting, in law school, the very first is Marbury against Madison. That's the one. Because without that, we don't have a Supreme Court. How about the cabinet? The Constitution references department heads but does not create a formal presidential cabinet structure. Here's one that we all know, the Federal Reserve. No mention at all of a central bank. In fact, if you could bring any of the founders back, up to and including most probably maybe Hamilton and certainly Jackson, and you said there was a central bank, the Federal Reserve, they say no way. Absolutely. How about this? Immigration policy details. Congress has the authority over naturalization, but modern immigration systems are not spelled out. Administrative agencies, no mention. Large regulatory bodies, EPA, SEC, not mentioned. How about term limits for Congress? There are age requirements, but no term limits. Campaign finance rules, no reference. Marriage, no reference. Nothing. How many judges on the Supreme Court justices? No mention. The Air Force, no mention. What's mentioned? We don't know. And when you say the freedom of speech, wait a minute. So Congress shall pass a law to abridge the freedom of speech? You mean I can say anything? Well, no. Well, what freedom is there? I don't know. I read the Constitution. Where is it? It's not in there. What about this? When the police take an item from me and they violate the Fourth Amendment, search and seizure, and you know and I know they keep it out of evidence. They exclude it. It's the exclusionary rule, right? They keep it out of evidence. Where is that in the Constitution? Not mentioned. Case law did that. It goes on and on and on. So what I'm saying is, I love the document. Whenever I'm in Philly, I just look in awe. Just in awe of what we did. It is an actual living. It's a great thing. By the way, I think the Constitution is old, but it's not really living. But it's still good today. But by the way, our Constitution. Oh, let me just say something. I think is it Russia's, or maybe a version of Russia, or I forget what. Russia. I think it's Russia. Maybe their Constitution is the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. I mean, it covers every. This was then. I can't talk about now, but it covers every contingency you can imagine. And guess what? Here's the best part. The best part is, it's not enforced. They're called parchment rights. Means theoretically you have them, but they're not really enforced. There's no Supreme Court. That's the beautiful part about this. We have got to understand the way this system works. Do you know how many people say all the time to me, how is it that anybody would have a due process right who breaks into this country, who's an illegal alien? How do they do that? How does this happen? By what authority would they do that? Simple. Because most of the constitutional protections under the Bill of Rights talk about persons and persons, not citizens. Did they mean to do that? I don't know. Was this by accident? Did they think about illegal immigration? No. They couldn't even understand the notion of a country. They don't even know states versus. I mean, it's so beautiful. It's so nascent. So what I'm saying is, first rule is, do a little research, get your Chat GPT out, and find out all the stuff that is not even covered. that's not covered, that's not a part of any of this thing, which I find to be absolutely fabulous. Now, my friends, let's talk about something which we are not talking about. You know, there's some warfare going on in the world right now, or shooting, or exploding, whatever you want to call it. I don't know by definition of what you would call it. Do you understand how computers and AI are playing a role in this? When we return from this seamless interruption, I want to still talk to you about how the notion of warfare is changing drastically and how some of the implications will frighten you. In addition, if ever there is a topic that we talk about which piques a curiosity, either because of serial killing, degeneracy, mindless behavior, you are always welcome to interject and to add your 2 cents, as it were. Our number 800-848-9222. This is Lionel with you on the other side of midnight.
The Other Side of Midnight with Lionel on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The Other Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Did you know Freddie Mercury had 2 rows of teeth? Did you ever see that? He had like extra teeth, like 2 rows. And they said, Freddie, you got to do something about that. He said, I'm afraid it'll affect my voice. Imagine if I said, all right, let's say we got a terrorist. Tell me where you planted the bomb. No. All right. Freddie, bring him in here. Freddie, I want you to bite this guy in the neck. Wait a minute. Hold on. Just a minute. Just a minute. How about if somebody were to, Freddie was, he was played on all kinds of teams. Imagine him trying to scrounge for groupies. And he shows up and he says, wait a minute, hold it. Let me see. No thanks. Why? One wrong move with those choppers and, you know what I mean? How many times have you stared at, see how many people have thought about that? How many people have looked at his teeth and thought, those are the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my life. 2 different rows. He could never close his mouth, but the guy was incredible. Had a microphone on that little pole, half a pole. Brian May was incredible. They were phenomenal. Would you put them into rock? Would you? I don't even know where they were from another planet. Excellent. And the what did I say? The biopic with the fellow with the exophthalmic eyes? No. Sorry, that doesn't work. Our number is 800-848-9222. Now, have you ever heard? You probably don't know this. See, Blaze, this isn't your thing because you're into obedience schools and Nest ring cameras. But see, Yuri and I know a little bit about this. And I've always liked the idea of secret societies, secret groups. And there's only something. Remember Bohemian Grove? We heard about Bohemian Grove since the beginning of time. And Bohemian Grove is this group of people. They're in the Northern California. It's where people of all levels of renown have meet. So there's a wonderful piece from the San Francisco Standard, and it says, what do Paul Pelosi, Jimmy Buffett, Conan O'Brien, Michael Bloomberg, and Eric Schmidt all have in common? They were all members of the ultra-secretive, men-only Bohemian Grove Society as recently as 2023. We know this because independent journalist Daniel Boguslaw obtained the Bohemian Grove camp membership list for that year and published it on Substack. In doing so, he joins their rarefied ranks of reporters who have succeeded in shedding light on the world's most secret, what about Bugs Bunny? Secret Redwood Grove. Reach for comment one club member confirmed it is a real membership list from 2023. Now, why would they do that in a secret organization? Since the 1980s, journalists have been trying to get inside the Bohemian Grove campground in Monte Rio in the Sonoma County by posing as waiters, lost hikers, and guests. San Francisco-based magazine Mother Jones was the first to succeed, publishing an inside scoop in 1981 that described the club as the place where men who make decisions that affect us all gather quietly. And, of course, the ineffable Alex Jones famously managed to film a ceremony at the Grove that fueled, quote, conspiracy theories for decades. Vanity Fair reporter Alex Shumatoff was arrested after posing as a member in 2008. And in 2018, Outside Magazine reporter Chris Collin was threatened by Bohemian Grove security simply for kayaking up to the high water line for the compound's beach along the Russian River. Now, the person who made this the most famous was Alex Jones. And Alex Jones, go online, go to YouTube, and see Alex Jones meeting with David Gergen. And David Gergen just chews him out. And Alex looks like the Cheshire Cat, grinning ear to ear. Do you know how many secret organizations there are? And the question is there anything wrong with a secret organization? Is there anything wrong with an elected official being a member of a secret organization? Years ago, I remember through Jim Tucker, I believe, and Alex, I was first made aware of the Bilderberg Group. The Bilderberg Group, they denied year after year. They said, there's no such thing. What are you talking about? That is a conspiracy theory, which I say again is the wrong term because conspiracy describes how people in an organization are situated. Well, not only is that true, they have a website. And you go down everything from the CFR to the Trilateral Commission, that for the longest time they said they don't exist. But think about the groups that are the most. And what's the number one group, which I know nothing about? The number one group, they always say, Freemasons. He's a Mason. He's a Freemason. 33rd degree. Look at this. And they show, and I have been, I think, studying this. I've known Masons in my whole life. It's like, what do they do that is so, what do they do? Okay, I know they're a secret. I'm a member of a fraternity, which is a secret, supposedly, but we don't do anything but drink. But what is it that they do? I don't know, but Washington was a Mason. This guy's a Mason. And you hear it in my channels all the time. My question to you is this. Please don't give your name, but I must ask you, for the love of God, what do Masons do? What is a Freemason? What is the big deal? Do you plan and hatch? The people that I know, one was a 33rd degree. This guy couldn't find his butt with a map. So what is it that you do? Why should it frighten us? And is there anything wrong with the notion of secret societies? And also coming up, so you think you know everything about AI and what's going on, especially during warfare? I'm going to say this until I'm blue in the face. You can't even comprehend what's going to happen next in the horrors. So we have a lot to talk about. Stay tuned.
Thanks for listening to The Other Side of Midnight. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here? Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our country has to offer, especially health care. Across every state, every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.